The Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is a critical role in Scrum projects. Scrum defines 3 roles: the product owner, the Scrum Master, and a team member. Product owner drives the product development effort from a business perspective, prioritizes the product backlog. The Scrum Master is a facilitator. The Scrum Master helps the team get things done. In Scrum, several rituals are described to help Agile teams succeed. There are grooming sessions in which the team improves requirements, elicits acceptance criteria, disambiguates stories, and tries to estimate the amount of effort required to implement them by sizing the stories. There are sprint planning meetings that take place at the very start of sprints to break the stories the team is committed to doing into a series of tasks that individual team members can take upon themselves and do. They have the skills and experience to do them. There are Scrum stand-up meetings, which take place every day during a Scrum iteration. Stand-up meetings are meetings in which the progress of the team is looked at, reviewed. Every task that's ongoing is discussed. It's not a detailed meeting, it only lasts a few minutes, but in it, the Scrum Master actually asks about every task and every person, what task they're doing, what task is complete, what tasks are next. So they're really looking at the project from the point of view of tasks. At the end of the sprint, there's a sprint demo. This is a meeting in which the team demonstrates to project stakeholders what they've achieved during the sprint. And then there's the sprint retrospective, at which time the team takes a look at what they've done and tries to adapt their self-organized process to improve their productivity, quality, and other elements of the workflow the team has undertaken. So just to take a look at the role of the Scrum Master and what the Scrum Master actually does, well, there's several things. The first thing that jumps at me is the notion of facilitation. The Scrum Master facilitates the Scrum team. The Scrum Master enables the Scrum team to get their job done. The Scrum Master is basically lubricating the wheels, making sure the team is able to get things done. It is an enabling role. It is not a directive role. The Scrum Master, in fact, acts as a servant leader, not as a director. The Scrum Master does not assign tasks to people and track them and give them the carrot and stick. Instead, the Scrum Master makes it possible for the team to succeed, makes sure everything is under control, facilitates things, and basically enables people so that when a task is available, a person with the suitable skills takes it upon themselves and does it at the appropriate time. The Scrum Master helps to resolve impediments. So during the sprint, if ever for any reason a task is blocked, delayed, deferred, or otherwise impeded, well, the Scrum Master's job is to help resolve the impediments. Technically, they might actually get their hands dirty and try to resolve it themselves, but usually they find what the cause of it is or figure out ways to work around the problem. They might even adapt the process accordingly depending on the circumstance. The Scrum Master is always considered a very resourceful team member and figures out clever ways to resolve impediments so that the work of the team can continue at a good pace. The Scrum Master makes sure they ensure the team has resources required to perform the tasks. That resources could be equipment, tools, compilers, computers, memory resources, network resources, virtual machines, test hardware, test software, links to communication systems, etc. So the Scrum Master makes sure the team has what they need to get the job done. The Scrum Master is coordinating their work with external suppliers or external teams. So we're coordinating. We do not work in isolation, but it becomes the Scrum Master's job to basically to shield the team members from these external sources and then provide the liaison, coordinate with external suppliers. The Scrum Master also coordinates with external stakeholders. There's stakeholders like the product owner that I mentioned earlier, but also maybe there's auditors, maybe there's CFOs, finance departments, different stakeholders at the customer community, different stakeholders at the organizational community. So the Scrum Master coordinates with them so that the team can get about doing their work. The Scrum Master every single day holds a sprint Scrum stand-up meeting. This takes place every day. When most teams I work with do this first thing in the morning, but sometime during the day, the Scrum Master basically meets with everybody and takes a look at the work that's in progress. For example, they'll ask what tasks have been completed, what tasks are in progress, are there any impediments? So they'll basically take a deep look at the task list. And this might involve also adding tasks that were omitted in planning and removing tasks that are no longer needed that could have been anticipated in planning. The Scrum Master shares the task progress with the team, usually by managing a task board, a Scrum task board, which could be a huge low-tech dashboard on a wall, or it could be automated with software tools and technologies. The Scrum Master facilitates the daily Scrum meeting, so they're basically, effectively, they're the leader of the meeting. Even though they're not doing tasks of the team, they're making sure that everybody participates, everyone knows where the meeting is, everyone is aware of the results of the meeting. Also, the meeting facilitation skills are critically important because they want to keep the team focused on what matters and not waste time getting distracted by other topics or deep discussions of technical solutions, things like that. They try to keep the meetings to the point, focused on their goal and no more. The Scrum Master facilitates end of sprint demo meetings. So at the end of the sprint, after all the features and stories are done, the Scrum Master will facilitate the demo, make sure that the demonstration can take place so that all of the features implemented are demonstrated to the stakeholders. The Scrum Master facilitates the end of sprint team retrospective meeting. This retrospective meeting is a lessons learned meeting that takes place at the end of every single sprint, every iteration. And in this meeting, the team looks at what worked, what didn't work, what happened, how their process could be adapted and changed, and they will then innovate. They will change things a bit, adapt a bit, so as to improve their productivity, quality, and other concerns in the next sprint. The changes discussed in the retrospective will take effect immediately. It doesn't have to wait for a long time because the team is self-organized and adapts their organization after each retrospective meeting. The Scrum Master provides evidence of completed tasks if and when required by stakeholders. For example, auditors may need proof of compliance of certification testing in certain cases, so the Scrum Master makes sure that they have evidence that these tasks were completed. The Scrum Master ensures the team conforms to their definition of done. The team has made a definition of done. They've agreed to the product owner on what done means. And every time a backlog entry, a product backlog entry is actually completed, a story is implemented, a bug is fixed, whatever the entry is, then they have a consistent definition of done, and the Scrum Master makes sure that definition is applied. The Scrum Master facilitates the sprint planning meeting. The Scrum Master does not have to be deeply technically involved in the discussions, but the Scrum Master's got to make sure that discussions take place and people drive that to identifying what is the actual technical work the team's going to do during this sprint. The Scrum Master facilitates the negotiation between the team and the product owner related to which product backlog entries the team is going to commit to implementing in the next sprint. So negotiations about the sprint backlog contents, the sprint backlog commitment, are facilitated by the Scrum Master. This is not a unilateral decision by the Scrum Master. In fact, it's a negotiation between the team and the product owner. Sometimes this takes place shortly before the sprint planning meeting, but there's a lot of varieties in how teams approach this. There's other responsibilities of the Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master tracks the team story point burn down. Whenever a story is done, they basically count down the size of the story, and they create what is really called a burn down chart, and this burn down chart on story points can help the team track their velocity, their story point velocity. Keep in mind, story points are a synthetic unit of measure used to estimate the size of each story or backlog entry the team is committed to implementing. A team has a capacity of so many story points per sprint, and so the burn down chart basically shows how that capacity is consumed to get the job done. So we're tracking the story point burn down, we're tracking the story point velocity, which is effectively the slope of the project burn down chart. So when you have one, you implicitly have the other one. The Scrum Master tracks task effort. Very often burns that down on an hour basis internal to the team. So this information is usually not reported outside the team, but is used inside the team day by day to help them coordinate work being done on a task-by-task basis. The Scrum Master facilitates product backlog grooming meetings. Grooming meetings or grooming sessions are activities where the entire team works with the product owner to improve, clean up, and otherwise refine product backlog entries, disambiguating them, making sure that there are clear acceptance criteria established for them, and making sure that they will meet the need and deliver the value that the customer really needs from them. So this is a grooming session. In the grooming session, often we do sizing. So sometimes sizing is done separate from grooming, sometimes it's part of it, but the Scrum Master has a central role in facilitating sizing. Some teams use team-based techniques, such as planning poker or wideband Delphi, to try to estimate the size of stories. This needs facilitation. Team-based estimation techniques need facilitation, so the Scrum Master plays that role. The Scrum Master ensures that the self-organized process the team has chosen to follow is adapted based on end of sprint retrospective results. So the Scrum Master is making sure that the process changes are applied, and the Scrum Master is not required to take on any product development tasks, although in some Agile teams we see the Scrum Master taking on some tasks which are not on the critical path of the development effort. Keep in mind that the Scrum Master is supposed to be helping to resolve impediments if the Scrum Master is actually developing a feature and then stops that to help resolve an impediment on another feature. They basically will be delaying their own project, and they will be effectively on their own critical path. So it's generally considered good practice for the Scrum Master to not take on any product development tasks, and if they do take on product development tasks, to make sure that these tasks are not on the critical path of the project. So that's basically it for the roles of the Scrum Master, the rituals that the Scrum Master partakes in. The Scrum Master definitely benefits from having crisp communication, facilitation skills. It's someone who the team should trust and feel comfortable in sharing information with, and is someone who basically will go out of their way to help the team succeed in getting things done.